This Sunday, the season of Advent begins, ending with the Feast of Christmas. If I ask you what the season of Advent's all about, you might say it's the time when we prepare for Christmas, for the birth of Jesus, and that's true. But there's something more to Advent than remembering Jesus' birth long ago. Advent's also about what's happening today and what's coming tomorrow. The birth of Jesus is not about something long ago either. His birth affects what's happening today and what's coming tomorrow. Advent's a time to listen to prophets like Jeremiah and Isaiah. Now you might ask, why listen to them? They're old. They're from the Old Testament. What can they tell us about today and tomorrow? We can sometimes hardly understand what they're saying about their own time. So speaking for God in our first reading, the prophet Jeremiah says, I will raise up for David a just shoot. What's a just shoot that's raised up for David? In those days Judah shall be safe and Jerusalem shall dwell secure. What does that have to do with our today and our tomorrow? There are two things to know about prophets like Jeremiah. First, a prophet has an experience of being called by God. Second, he tells the people of his time to reimagine their world, to reimagine their world. Their world isn't what they see it to be. Jeremiah's world was very hard to reimagine. Jerusalem at his time was facing a massive Babylonian army coming from the north, leveling cities and towns, destroying crops and farmland, confiscating valuables, rounding up able-bodied Jews to bring them to Babylon as slaves. They spared nothing. Everybody seems lost. The Babylonians were punishing the Jews for siding with Egypt, their main rival. So people were saying, bad decisions have been made. Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? Bad political decisions were made. Jeremiah's world was like the world Luke describes in his gospel. People were dying of fright in anticipation of what was to come. The powers of heaven were shaken. God has disappeared. That's Jeremiah's world, a world in crisis. And when you have crisis, it's hard to imagine anything else. Some try to hide from it. That's what happens in hard times. Some don't want to face it. Let's close the door and get drunk. Let's do drugs, they say. You can't do anything about it anyway. That's Jeremiah's world. And he wasn't looking at it from a distance either. He was immersed in it. The prophets were immersed in their times. They encouraged those who thought right and they scolded those whom they thought wrong. They were troublemakers, especially to the powerful who don't like to be contradicted. Jeremiah was thrown into a pit by his enemies who hoped that the waters and the mud would swallow him up, but they didn't. Keep your eyes open to another world, Jeremiah kept saying, a world you may have forgotten. There seems to be more to the world than you see. Keep your eyes open. It could be as small as a tiny shoot, a sliver of green coming out of the parched earth. Keep your eyes open. Jeremiah does what all the prophets do. Reimagine your world, he said. There's more than what absorbs and holds your attention. There's more than what you hear on the 24-hour newscasts. That's why we listen to prophets like Jeremiah. A child is born for us. A son is given. How little that seems to me in a world that's falling apart. But if we listen to the prophets, that's what we should pay attention to. Don't forget it. God's with us. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, God's with us. Don't forget it, Advent says. Your world isn't falling apart. It's in God's hands. and so are you.